you just can't make money off a product that people don't use, and you can't make money off seats that people that don't sit in. It comes down to like how much do you want to trigger a reconsideration of the entire space versus how much is it useful to say, hey, the old guys have a new hit. So I think if you're sitting there saying that you've somehow, QED proven that AI is not that big a deal for you, you're probably just coming up with a really, really nice deck that makes you feel great, but you're going to die, and that deck will probably be the thing that gets circulated.
Welcome to Trailblazers, the podcast where we sit down with contrarian tech leaders who found conventional success in unconventional ways. So today on the show, I am so thrilled to be joined by Des Traynor. Des is the co-founder and chief strategy officer of Intercom, the company behind FinAI, and he also sits on Intercom's board of directors. Over the years, Des has led teams across product, marketing, customer support, and content, playing a key role in shaping Intercom into one of the most influential customer communication platforms in the world. Today, he oversees Intercom's R&D team based in Dublin and London. Before founding Intercom, Des was a UX consultant, which we'll get into, a university lecturer in computer science, and a PhD researcher focused on improving computer science education and screening, if I'm correct, which we'll get into. He also previously co-founded Exceptional, a software company acquired by Rackspace. Beyond his work at Intercom, Des is an author, speaker, and angel investor, sharing insights on startups, product strategy, and scaling companies through books, podcasts, like right now, and conferences. He's also an investor in some of the most notable startups of our time, including Miro, Stripe, Notion, and Hopin. Let's welcome Des. Hi.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Likewise. That's quite a lineup of investments at the end there. Miro, Stripe, Notion. Well, Hopin, we won't get into it. Struggled a little bit. Maybe we should replace that one with a new one.
We can talk about it. I mean, it was definitely an interesting one.
Tell me, how did you get into Hopin? I know Hopin because we invested in my last firm.
Okay.
So I know a little bit of the inside scoop there, but I'm curious.
Yeah, so I know some as well. So Johnny's awesome, and I'd back Johnny again 8 days a week. My mistake with Hopin was not reading my email. I had an option to get out of Hopin at I guess 7 or 8 billion valuation, whatever the bananas valuation was. Anyway, at the time I was extremely on the 2020 buzz of all these companies are going to be massive, we're all geniuses, nothing could ever go wrong. Anyway, so I didn't sell anything. I should have.
Not even a little?
Not even a little. Despite the fact that I think I got into Hopin at 30 million, to be clear.
Wow.
So this is a story of at least $1 million miss, right, from basically not paying too much attention. And then, and even worse, just to add insult to injury, I, at some point, Hopin clearly wasn't working out as well or whatever.
And when did you figure that out? Because you weren't looking at your email. So was it more just...
that makes me sound extra bad. But I guess, so what happened was I saw the offer to sell and I was no, let's go to the moon, all that BS, right? And then I think at some point, obviously COVID stopped, and and at the time, I think Johnny was playing an excellent strategy of effectively using the valuation he had to acquire companies who had let's just say revenue that would clearly sustain post-COVID or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So he's buying streaming companies and all sorts of stuff that made sense, and I was totally supportive of that strategy. But I think somewhere along the way, I guess people worked out it wasn't necessarily worth the whatever the max valuation was. Anyway, there was some transfer, I think it was a reverse merger or something like that. I don't remember the exact details. You might know it because you probably saw it a lot closer than I did, or you probably did read your email. Anyway, there was some point where I was supposed to fill out a form that I didn't fill out, and as a result, all my shares just disappeared into the ether. So I actually got zero back.
You know what I will say? I'm not going to put this in writing, but I think it may have sold for less than what you came in at. So I think it all worked out in the end.
These things happen. I learned some lessons. There was 2 or 3 other opportunities during 2020 to sell at bananas valuations on other companies.
Yeah.
Some of which some of which have caught up with the bananas valuation. So I'm okay.
Totally.
Still probably should have done it with the benefit of hindsight. But there's a few other stings yet to fall, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people are just holding their breath. Do you have a formula, I'm asking this selfishly, for when things are bananas, when do you sell? How do you think about it? I mean, I know it's easier to just say ignore the email and hope for the best, but have you learned any lessons now that you hold yourself to?
The lesson I used to follow that actually led me astray was, I think it was Dharmesh from HubSpot.
Yeah.
Said he had a rule that basically says in order to be an angel investor but also have a full-time job, I can't have the same discipline that you might have when you're a full-time investor, right? And so he was saying you make the decision once, you buy or don't buy, but then you never do pro rata, and you never sell in secondaries. So he's just like play the lottery properly, or whatever you might frame it. And I was like, that sounds good, because what I meant was every time I look at a company, I make one decision. I don't have to make an annual decision or a yearly decision or a big decision. Like
Totally.
Whereas when I get hit with like pro rata, then I'm like, oh, here we go again. Now I need to litigate. Do I still like this company? Do I think they'll survive AI? So I kind of I guess I still kind of support that logic. But I think there's been a few times of late that I've been offered a chance to sell some of my holdings in companies, and I actually have taken it, because I think I guess it's just a bit of scar tissue, but also like I think some of these companies are like potentially doing well off the AI hype, and I think like some of these like our checks I wrote in 2014, so the money's kind of like they've managed to turn a corner through AI. So I'm like, yeah, cool. I mean, that's great, but I might still 20% of my holding,
Totally. Well, it's also this concept of like, if it's been going on long enough at that point, like to see any sort of liquidity 11 years later, like
Totally.
you're going to jump at it, because
exactly.
in our business, like I was, there's a friend of mine invested in a company, they went public. It's still going to take years to get their money back. And like, it's going to be like a 16, 17 year process.
Yep.
And people don't realize we're so used to 10-year cycles, but like
Totally.
you say 11 years ago, I'm like, you better get some liquidity, because like that's
I know.
rare.
And like the like without getting too sad for ourselves here, like you kind of realize time matters in a return profile. Like it really does. Like, and all the you've got like dilution, you've got like the final even companies that like look like a great success, you're like, but show me the per share price of that acquisition. It's not as hot as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to think about, and ultimately I don't know. I've been getting ever so slightly like Bitcoin pilled of late, because I'm just like, it turns out for like the best of the best investments I made, I think of like 5 of my investments outperform Bitcoin. Like that's where we are. So
I hear you. Well, I'm in this weird boat now where I'm trying to decide if I should sell. I mean, as the time we're interviewing this, like yesterday I saw 125.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, do I sell 20%? Do I? There's no right answer. I'm just kind of like waiting and seeing. Are you a big crypto guy? Is that something that
I have resisted it for as long as possible, but I really believe in this sort of new framing that Owen, our CEO, shared with me recently. He was sort of saying, look at the manner in which the euro and the dollar have been gradually debased or like eroded.
Totally.
And like there are analyses that you do that makes you realize that like just because things are going up, it doesn't mean anything's going up. And so like I've been this is like very fresh, this is the last few weeks or something like that. So I've been considering like either doing the research or YOLOing a lot more into crypto. I'd had like small pockets of cash in it, but like nothing super substantial in terms of net worth or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth exploring. I mean, I'm very biased, but yeah, I think also crypto, there's a big conversation around like everything else other than Bitcoin, and then there's like the Bitcoin conversation, and yeah, I mean, I'm very bullish on it, but I also think everyone needs to proceed with risk, and this is not financial advice.
Yeah.
Proceed with caution. Amazing. So let's get into it. I have an icebreaker question for you. So I kind of hinted at this earlier, but we like to get personal. We like to get deep on here. So answer this however you want. So we talk a lot about choosing the hard paths here on the show. You've been building Intercom for quite some time. What has been the hardest part of your journey so far building it, and the moment that almost broke you? What comes to mind? And it can be professional or it can be personal.
I'll give a couple. The first one that I would say that almost broke me, but like it's like debt as a part of life, was like in I think I always get the year wrong. It's shocking. 2010, maybe 2011. My mum died over Christmas, and I think like a large part of my motivation for like doing something great with my career was actually to earn money to be able to like reward her for the life she had given me. And then it was kind of this weird bittersweet thing where like things were actually clearly working out well for Intercom. We had just done a Series A or something like that. Like I'll get the years gonna be slightly off here because it kind of all blurs that period. But there was a moment when I realized, like no matter how well I do, I won't ever get to be able to do the thing that I wanted to do. And that was a kind of I wouldn't say it almost broke me, because I wasn't gonna quit or whatever, but it was just genuinely tough. The other things that have almost broke, I mean, like I think in probably the next big one would be like we were all set to like IPO and be this like this yet one of the 2020 crew that like caught the post-COVID boost and was like all ready to rock. And then all of a sudden things just, we all thought we were geniuses, and then things just started to fall apart. And it turns out we weren't geniuses. It also turns out we were idiots either. It just turns out we were caught on a wave. And I think if you wanna kill any startup, you flood it with cash, tell it that the future is guaranteed, tell it to expand its strategy, broaden its mandate, get really, really big and ambitious, and then just rip all the revenue away in one fell swoop. And I think that forces really, really painful decisions. Rifts, changing strategy. For us, it was changing CEO. Our founding CEO, returned, and it was just every week there was some sense of, oh Christ, what now, and that was just, it was very, very tough. But at the same time, it was really hard to work through that period. I also don't think I was as good as I could have been in that period. But it's just but we're alive and fighting and doing really well now. So part of me looks back with pride that we got through
Totally.
it. Part of me will reflect and say, the next time things are that tough, I need to be stronger,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's that saying, whatever, what didn't kill you made you stronger, right? And you guys are now here to talk about all the great stuff that you're working on.
Yeah.
What caused the revenue to all go away in one fell swoop? I mean, I hear you in terms of
one
that.
fell swoop is probably a little bit dramatic, but I'll tell you what, so
Within one period of time.
Yeah. So where did it come from? Post-COVID, everyone was inflated with loads of cash, and people had massive hiring plans. AI hadn't happened yet, so everyone was like, "Oh, we're gonna get so big. We're gonna need 100 salespeople, 200 support people, blah blah." All those plans turned into seats in our software, and so then obviously our revenue growth was very strong, and then our valuation was very strong, and everything was just going fantastic, and then. I think it was November 17th ish. I was to try and have a guess of what was the top of market. I think it was perhaps 2021. Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Oh, yeah.
You might know it better.
No, I think you're right.
Things
Yeah.
just started to unbundle, and for us, what that looked like is, that was a missed quarter. That's surprising. We haven't missed a quarter in a while. Well, that big deal that was supposed to close didn't close, or only supposed to be a 3-year deal, and now it's a 6-month deal. Hey, those 600 seats turned into 200. And then all of a sudden, so that was the first kind of wave. You're like, all right, grand, bit of bumpiness, we'll get through this. Then it was like, oh, no one's signing any new large deals because no one's optimistic or ambitious about the future, because they're looking at their revenue, which caused us to look at our revenue and be like, oh, maybe. So that was the next wave, which was not only did net new business come down, but then contraction started to kick in. Then all of a sudden churn, because we sell to software companies and startups, and they all started to fall apart. And then you're looking at these deals where it's like, hey, jump on a call with such and such a company, and you're trying to do some sort of diving save, when you realize they're like, no, we're cancelling this contract because we bought 400 seats off you and we only have 60 employees left. And you're like, there's not much jazz hands you can do to talk them into keeping the 400 seats at that point, right? So this is all it was just wave after wave, and then the company started going bust. So then that just led to us having right, there's no customer there. So now the NRR of that account's pretty low, right? And then obviously all that trickles back into our growth numbers, which trickles back into our valuation. It's just the whole thing falls apart. In the middle of all this, we're sitting there with this roadmap and strategy and vision for what life was going to be like as a public company, and none of that happened either. So yeah, it was just kind of crazy times. Now we weren't alone. I think that's basically the story of every. You probably, again, you saw more of it than me. It's the story of every company, and there's a sense of there, but for the grace of God go I, because some of the companies that did get out in that period are still chasing that valuation from 4 years
100%.
ago. Except for now they're whatever, quadruply over diluted and still struggling to cast off the shadows of yesteryear, etc.
Yeah, no, we all saw it. It was very difficult. Did you guys ever think about having a business model tweak? I mean, I think when you have this seat-based pricing, right, you're really, really falling victim to these swings. Everyone's going to hire, so that's amazing. Everything goes up, but then now, obviously, we all know people are leaner and leaner teams using AI. I mean, we'll get into all that in a second, but did you ever think the problem is the model, not the market?
So we should talk about pricing in a bit, because AI obviously changed it all. But at the time, it was, I think, I don't know. We always have sort of believed in value-aligned pricing, and it's when you're selling software that's really nice and pretty that people can sit in and type in replies to talk to their customers. We could possibly have charged by the number of customer conversations. We could possibly have charged by the number of customers that they spoke to. But seats seem to be the best proxy for value that people were receiving. But I think in a lot of these cases, the things that added up that didn't work for us, selling seats ahead of demand was a bad idea. So hey, you're probably going to be like, you're 100 now, you'll be 200 by the end of the year. How about we just give you the other 200 on a discount that rolls off over time? That's a way to kind of like, you're taking a loan out from the future and it comes back with interest. So that sort of stuff so selling into future usage is a bad idea. If I was to really just drill it all down, I'd say you just can't make money off product that people don't use, and you can't make money off seats that people that don't sit in. Seats that people don't sit in. Like, there has to be some version of value there, and I think all of SaaS lost that perspective. And interestingly, AI has kind of brought it back a little bit, because with AI, businesses obviously, like, everyone's first stab at AI has been like, just stick it on the seat. So it's like, do you want the seat or do you want the AI seat? The AI seat comes with sparkly buttons,
Exactly.
And I think, like, we pioneered this idea of, like, actual outcome-based pricing. So not consumption-based, not usage-based, but actual outcome. So Fin, our product, only charges when you actually get a resolution to a customer support query. And that's been really interesting to see people react to, because they're like, so we only pay you when you literally do the job? And we're like, yes. And they're like, okay. And like, we're not also going to try and strong arm you into a massive contract or anything either. We're just like, look, let us cook. And if we do a good job, you're going to pay us $1 an answer. If we don't, you're not going to pay us anything. Which is, who can lose here? And so that has really been useful for us. But it's been interesting seeing a lot of the products that have more sparse usage try to, like, they all look at Fin and go, oh, we should do something like that. And you can see someone in the high going, oh, who's going to tell them that no one uses the product? Oh, that's going to... So, like, I think there will be some interesting implications of like outcome and usage-based pricing for products that have habitually been like shelfware.
Absolutely. No, and that's such an interesting use case that you guys have seen it really work. And I think also when there's so much software and everyone's promising the same thing, it's really hard to commit to these contracts, these like future contracts, because you don't want to pigeonhole yourself when there might be something better coming out. Like, I mean, we'll get into it, but like the space that you are in is as competitive as any.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's insane.
It's an actual dogfight, like,
It's insane. It's like, I would put it in like the top 3 or 4, like, most competitive sectors right now, incumbents and startups. And so, then the customer has the advantage. Like, they don't have to lock you in because they have a million options. So, like, was that part of the thinking with this outcome-based pricing? Or like, I'm trying to get at also when that came about and when you had that moment where you were like, let's try this really novel thing where we don't lock people in.
I think, when owner CEO returned, one of the things we tried to do was just get back to simple, fair, and transparent pricing, right? So that kind of outruled, like, messy, long, strong arm tactics or any of that sort of stuff. So we were trying to pick a simple price for like Fin, and we sort of said, well, you could charge things you look like marked up tokens. Hey, Fin burns a lot of tokens, let's just sell them back with 10% on top or whatever. Or we could have tried, like, again, stuck it on top of seats or any of that sort of stuff. But I think what we found was, like, if we, the product worked, and there's a great marketing message in being able to say we only charge you when we work, and honestly, a lot of our contemporary competitors can't say it because they don't do it, and so there's a strength or a swagger, if you like, to it, right? Totally. That was definitely part of the calculus when we were considering how we could do it, and I think it's genuinely helped. So I also think again, it aligns the incentives in a really good way. Like, our customers want to hand over as much stuff to AI as possible. We want them to do that too. One of the big concerns at the time was cannibalization. So the idea of, like, hey, what if they cancel all their intercom seats and just buy Fin? And we're like, well, actually, that's totally fine. We actually make more money in that case. So, like, finding the sort of the right kind of, touching point or like trading zone where, like, hey, if you had 40 seats to do, like, let's just say 4,000 conversations or whatever, if we get $4,000, does that work? No, because or maybe it does. Sorry, like $100 a seat. We'll make better money on Fin, even allowing for an AI margin, not being pure SaaS, etc. We'll still do better at that. But, like, it doesn't work at, say, 50 cents a seat. Like, so there's some, like, tension. We also just wanted to be aggressive. The other thing I'd say is, like, we were the first in the space. We were the first product in the space, so it wasn't like we had a lot to look at either. We were just kind of like, okay, well, seats doesn't seem to make sense, blah blah. So anyway, this is where we settled.
I love it. And I think that being like a first mover in this space specifically has really helped put you guys on the map and set you apart. I was looking, I don't know where I found this, but I was looking at like a timeline of like when all these competitors came out with their AI version, and you guys were tell me if this is right, like 15 days after ChatGPT launched.
Yep.
I'd love to get into that, sort of and I've heard bits and pieces of it, but just quickly for folks who don't know, the origin story of FinAI. ChatGPT launches 2022. How quickly do you guys turn things around? I mean, from my understanding, it was like it launches and then on the Monday you're working on the next thing. Talk to me about that.
Correct. So I think ChatGPT launched, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday night. And I met with our head of AI, Fergal, the following morning, and then I spoke with our CEO that evening, and then all through the weekend. And we were basically saying, like, look, this thing definitely does something. It's definitely a part of the future fabric of software. So the question was just like, how hard should we go? And I think at the time, you have to remember, like, hallucinations was the big talk of the day back then. And everyone's like, oh, will this shit really work, you know? And what we wanted to do was, our first release of AI features happened, I think, well, it was probably like 7 days we were looking at internally, and then maybe like 15 days when we actually released something in the space. We released it to agents first. We sort of said, hey, here's what we think the answer is based on everything we know. And that was really valuable and powerful. And you know, that, like, we had like a viral moment with that because it was the first example of AI deployed, like production LLMs from like OpenAI deployed in a real SaaS app, right? I think it was January was when we got access to GPT-4, maybe just before Christmas. And GPT-4 was the first time we felt we could guardrail against hallucinations properly, and it would like obey. So we had a working prototype of Fin early in January, where we were like, right, this thing can actually talk to customers, and it's not risky, and it will stay on topic, and it won't recommend your competitor, and it won't talk about politics and all this sort of stuff that you worry about the agents doing, because, you know, again, 3.5 was doing a bit of that.
Yeah, we all saw it. I mean, we all...
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you play with 3.5, I know if you're like, this thing's cool, but also I don't want to start talking to my customers.
But did you even know when 4 was coming out? Like, I think that's also the concern, is like, you can build all you want, but you don't... What's the timing?
Yeah, we weren't super sure when we started, so we were sitting on Fin for a little bit. Then we heard that like March was the rumored date, and I think March 13th was when 4 dropped, and we like launched Fin that day, basically. Once we heard that was the day, we're like, right, let's go out with it. And we just did a lot of publicity. OpenAI helped us out with some as well, and then that was the evolution of the like AICS era. Like, that's where it started, and I think we probably made some mistakes along the way there too. But like, ultimately, we sort of set the wheels in motion.
Absolutely, and I mean, there's been so many folks that followed.
Yeah.
On Trailblazers, we spotlight founders who succeed by doing things differently, not by following the playbook, but by rewriting it. Many of those unconventional builders and the VCs backing them run on Brex because it helps them scale with speed and focus. From smart corporate cards and high-yield banking to AI-powered expense management, Brex gives startups the financial stack they need from day one so they can spend more time building and less time managing back-office operations. More than 30,000 companies, from breakout startups like Anthropic and Cursor to global leaders like DoorDash and Plaid, trust Brex to help them spend smarter and move faster. That's why we, as a venture firm and also the podcast, run on Brex too. Sign up at brex.com/trailblazerspod to get started and claim exclusive rewards. That's brex.com/TRAILBLAZERSPOD. RocketReach is the leading sales and lead intelligence solution trusted by sales, marketing, recruiting, and business development teams to grow their businesses. Whether you're looking for a developer halfway around the world, a C-level executive in New York, or a potential investor in Silicon Valley, we connect you directly. With RocketReach, you can easily access the most comprehensive, accurate compilation of emails and phone numbers on Earth. That puts you in front of the right people faster and backs you up with a database that reaches across industries, markets, and titles, using AI to continually improve the quality of your contacts. With RocketReach, you can reach anyone so you can reach higher. Many of you know I love cold outreach. It's been the root of many of my success so far, and this is the tool that I've used the whole time. Trailblazer listeners get 15% off any plan at rocketreach.co/trailblazers. That's rocketreach.co/trailblazers. I wanted to ask you a question. As a VC, I think about this a lot. Incumbents versus startups. So I think there's this very interesting notion in venture that every big frontier technology is going to have startups benefit from it. I'm of the belief that, especially with AI, you've got a lot of incumbents that are sitting on a lot of data, sitting on a lot of distribution. They actually might win more, but they don't have the team. They don't have maybe like the fast-moving young folks. How do you think about who's going to win in the AI world? You know, we don't even have to be specific to your space of CX, but like incumbents versus startups, what are you seeing, and how do you think folks should evaluate who's going to win?
Yeah. The first bit of calculus I do, because I see this a lot in like when people are asking me to invest in their company, like, oh, we're an AI project management tool or we're an AI GitHub or whatever, right? I think the first question I try to get to a clear opinion, at least in my head on it, is what percentage of the incumbents' assets are still applicable in the future? So that, and it could be everything from like their brand. Like I think a lot of brands haven't really adapted or haven't carried well into AI. That's part of the reason why we have Finn and it's not just intercom AI in some sense, because people are always looking for the new. Then you've got like the actual product. So like if you and me start, like let's just say we decide to start like an email product, right? Like let's say we're going to go and fight Klaviyo or Braze or something like that. I'm just picking something that's not CS for a second.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, what are the big things that AI can do that weren't possible before? Maybe it's, it can write the letter, it can design the letter, it can do all that, it can solve all your mobile rendering concerns. Okay, that's cool. How much work is that? Oh, like that's, maybe it's like 3 months, 4 months to build all that. Okay, what else do we have to build to compete with one of those incumbents? Well, we need to build, massive email capability, anti-spam, can-spam, all that sort of stuff. We need to build, reputational stuff so that our emails can get opened and all that. And when you stack it all up, you're like, those guys can deliver whatever it is, like hundreds of millions of emails a day reliably, and they can do it all because they've got all these relationships, and they've got all these customers, and we're going to try and attack them because we can use AI to generate email text. I'm like, I don't see it, right?
There's a bit more of a gap, yeah.
Yeah. So like, and that's a way of saying like, we have to copy a lot of the assets that they have. But there are other domains where you're like, nope, like, an example might be like the coding agents going after, say, Visual Studio. It's like, well, how important is the AI, the quality of the AI code that you produce? Pretty important.
Yeah.
How hard is it to clone or fork an IDE? Not that hard or important. Okay, so then the dynamic flips all of a sudden where you're like, all right, you and me could just go and fork VS Code, and if we did have some smart extra techers around the idea of producing like lines of code really reliably, I think we have a great opportunity to attack. So like, I think that's kind of like the dynamic. You're looking at like how much of the old stuff is still relevant, how big is the new stuff, and the way you answer to that piece is you say basically, if you designed this entire thing from scratch, what would it look like, and how much of the old stuff would you be like, oh, that's convenient, we already have one of those. And I think in a lot of domains there's very little of that. In a lot of domains, when you reimagine whatever it is, expense tracking, or you reimagine payroll or HR in the AI era, you'll find a lot of those, like it's a mixed bag for sure, but sometimes genuinely very little of the code that came before you is of any use whatsoever. And in those cases, I think you're in big trouble. You might still have 2 or 3 good years, but the startups are coming for you.
Yeah.
And then there'll be other times when you'll say, no, it's okay. A lot of what we have, they have to go and build. And it could be relationships, partnerships, patents, whatever. It could be code bases, or it could be like meaningful chunks of product that are still necessary. And in those cases, I think that's probably not as attackable. But you have to be really careful. If you convince yourself that you're fine, I'm always skeptical, because like I think a lot of people said no, Photoshop's not going to get like attacked, or at least not by anyone other than Figma. And you're like, no, there might be a thing where we just bypass creativity entirely and just get the images produced, and then so like genuinely. See, then you look at say like Figma, great company, right? But like they're like still their existence is like predicated on the idea that like see people interact with and design interfaces like piece by piece. Whereas there is a possibility, I don't know where we're at in the state of play here, that there's going to be like an alakazam. Let's just go and give me like 10 different ideas for a project management interface. That one, give me that one in code. In that case, like you're bypassing all of the stuff along the way here. So I think like you always have to be careful that there's not some like some extreme leapfrog that you just didn't see coming.
Totally. And it's the fundamental user experience that can totally evolve. And then like what you've built, like you said, is so different and just not, it's kind of rendered useless, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great team, but rendered useless.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the name Finn AI versus Intercom. And I'm thinking a lot these days about the Copilot names people choose. I think it's very interesting. The gender elements, do you choose the same name that you already have? Do you choose a new name? I have a lot of thoughts, but I wanted to hear what was like the thought process there on choosing Finn, and then why not do Intercom AI? Why create the new product?
It was really a new identity. I think the biggest, most important thing was to give people something new to look at. There's just a thing, like the tech industry in general is just obsessed with this idea of newness, right?
Yeah.
It's this idea, just when something's new, it like creates an itch that people just feel they need to scratch, which is like, you haven't heard of such. If I said to you, oh, you haven't heard of Quiggle, and you're like, what's Quiggle? And I'm like literally, you're like already part of your brain's like, oh shit, I'm after missing the deal for Quiggle. I wonder what Quiggle is. Is it Quiggle.ai? Like your brain's already ran away with it. Where if I said to you, Erica, IBM have a new product, you're already gone. You're like, I don't care. Like,
IBM, bureaucratic, corporate, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Relevant.
And then like, so maybe IBM is a bit too extreme, but like if you take, Workday have it, and you're like, oh, again, like you're like, I already, and what's going on there is, in your head, you've already categorized the big brand that you know into some subsection, and you've already like typecast them, right? And there's a real like sense of you just don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So when you say, have you heard of Fin? And like we're in New York right now, like there's like billboards and posters everywhere for just Fin.ai. It doesn't mention Intercom anywhere. And that creates this sense of like, what the hell is that thing? And that's actually what we need to create, because otherwise it's just like, help desk company keeps on producing help desk stuff. Got it. Boring. News at 11. So like we were really trying to punch through and say, no, there's a new thing called Fin, and you should go and check it out. Separately, there's a few other reasons why we wanted to do it. One is like Fin works with Zendesk and Salesforce and all that. You don't have to use Intercom to use Fin. And we had to make that really clear. So if we called it the Intercom AI agent, it just sounds like an extended feature of Intercom, which it's not. It's actually a standalone product. So it was really important from that point of view. And like, I think in general, giving it like a non-name like Intercom AI or something like that, you kind of like, you cost yourself a lot, because it's just, it doesn't make it sound like a startup or a product or anything like that. And we knew we were going to be competing with startups and who have their own products that have like cool, modern, vibey names. So we had to do something similar. So that was like,
and even the brand is like kind of cool, vibey, new age.
Yeah, we had to do, and like there'll be more. We'll be progressively adding more depth to that brand. I think as it evolves, we're kind of trying to work out what Fin will be when it grows up. So like there's a bit more to come in the brand, in that. Should Fin have its own whatever careers page? Should what does Fin believe in? Like those sort of questions we'll be answering over the next while as we extend the brand.
Yeah, it's figuring out how those identities play together and play separately.
Absolutely.
How quickly did you figure this all out? I mean, I guess if we're doing the math, it's like 3 or 4 months, but this is a lot of like work and thoughtfulness into building this new brand when you were moving very fast. How long did this take to sort of sort through and get clarity on?
So I think it's been progressive clarity. I'd credit Owen, our CEO, with starting the ball. He was the one who sort of said, no, this has to be a thing. It can't be like, it was all set to become Intercom's AI agent or whatever, right? I think then as it started growing, like it's like doing like last public status, like, 1 million resolutions a week, which means it's like a 50 million run rate business as of a couple of months ago. Like it's big, it's a significant thing. If it was a startup, it would be like wildly valued at its current growth rate. It's like on course to probably be 100 mil by like, early next year or whatever. Like, so it's like, it's a fast growing hyper growth startup, faster than Intercom ever grew. And in all those like market landscape maps that the VCs love to publish, it should be like high and to the right of all of them. But it's not, because they sellotape it to Intercom, which is like this hundreds of $1 million SaaS business, right? But we as Fin grows, we realize it needs more and more things, and it needed like, so we when it first emerged, it was a cute character like with a smiley face and it had hands and arms and stuff. Then it was like, no, that felt too cute and it wasn't mature enough. So then the current logo is more like AI native or whatever. But I think like it's been this progressive understanding, mostly triggered by the realization that like that this is undeniably the future of CS. Like there's, I think in 5 years' time there will still be help desks, but I think they'll be like minority players in the stack. And I think when you realize that, you're like, well then the thing that's actually doing the majority of the work needs to have a big beefy brand, much like say one of our older competitors like Zendesk had a big warm, remember like the whole Zendesk Buddha, the lotus leaf, all that sort of stuff. Of course. They had a great brand, right? And I think they've chomped away at it too much, but that's like, Fin needs to be as big of a brand as that, if you know what I mean. It has to have like that much to it where it really stands for something clear.
It makes total sense. How do you think about incumbents building their second lives and additional products? Like let's say 5 years from now, and not to say that AI is like a hype thing and it's going away, but let's say there's some sort of new technology or new convergence of technologies where you see that CS is moving in even more of a different direction. Mm-hmm. Would you build a third product? Like how do you think about, for incumbents, how should they think about building a new brand and a second product and not getting distracted and not following hype, but also not losing their market share entirely? What's your advice?
It's actually it's like a transposition of the answer we just discussed about about product, right? Like it's how much of the old brand is still useful. Mm-hmm. Like it's probably more meaningful to say Fin an intercom product. Because people go, so I don't need to worry. You probably are SOC 2 compliant. You probably do have HIPAA. You probably are scalable, and you can probably use you in an EU data center and all the shit that like bigger companies would care about.
Yeah.
So there's some credit to the weight of a mature brand, a scaled brand or whatever.
It's like the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
you can play
exactly.
in the startup world, but you've got the name to kind of ground you.
Exactly. That's what we would tell ourselves. There's a different angle, which is just like it's the Steve Buscemi gif. Like, how do you do, fellow humans? Like, where you're the old dude trying to hang out with the young kids or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, but like, no, I think like certainly larger buyers, they might be a little like, yikes, are we really going to put some new startup called Finn in front of all of our customers? And then it emerges like, no, don't worry, it's intercoms actually. I'm like, oh, I know those guys. Okay, cool. So there is some strength to that. But I think like it comes down to like I'm trying to rapidly come up with an example. Like I would say like Microsoft should, if they were to produce their own coding agent, I think they would have to produce, they couldn't call it VS Code agent or whatever. I think they should actually produce a new thing and give it a new, deep, meaningful identity and actually push that. And the reason I think that is because I don't think there's any like positive connotations anymore to like the immense set of tools that they had before. I think people have typecast them, and I don't think they're going to get any strength from like trying to lean on those brands. I think maybe like if Microsoft if they want to have another go at Microsoft Office, for example, as opposed to just inserting copilots all over the place, I think they probably would have to like not call it Office to really punch through. So it comes down to like how much do you want to trigger a reconsideration of the entire space versus how much is it useful to say, hey, the old guys have a new hit. Like it's kind of like what's your kind of that depends on your customers and how they evaluate procurement cycles, all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot to it. But I think I would err on the side of doing the new product, new brand, and assuming that everything you have before is a waste of time. Because for two reasons. One, I think typically that's more often true. And then secondly, whenever I get these portfolio updates from from our companies I've invested in, where they're telling me, actually, Des, you'd be surprised, we're actually not that affected by AI. Or they say like things like, oh, well, we built a little copilot, we don't need to go any further. That we talk to our customers. It all just smells like cope. It smells like, we chickened out of the big decisions. Like, for example, throwing out our product roadmap and rebuilding everything from scratch. And like
throwing out our product and rebuilding it from scratch. I mean, literally, exactly. Fundamental stuff. Yeah.
And like oftentimes, if it just seems to be a bit too convenient an answer, it's probably a lie you're telling yourself. The reality is this is just a time of technological upheaval, and like iPhone did this and cloud did this too. Like most companies don't survive those transitions, and this one's way bigger. So I think if you're sitting there saying that you've somehow QED proven that AI is not that big a deal for you, you're probably just coming up with a really, really nice deck that makes you feel great, but you're going to die, and that deck will probably be the thing that gets circulated, and you will be, if you probably remembered, like say the Blockbusters Netflix example, where Blockbusters were able to somehow argue that even in their last quarterly filing, the Netflix just isn't actually that big a deal. Like it's just the way companies are. Like I think
it's ego too, it's not admitting ego, you're wrong.
And it's a weird type of self-preservation where people will, rather than talk about things being bad, they'll fight to protect the narrative that things are good.
Well, especially in investor updates, right? The people you want to most impress,
That's I think genuinely, like a lot of, you see this happen in so many areas. People would rather, like, once the reality gets bad, you either taste reality, like proof, no distillation, no ice, like just drink it hard and say, right, we're in trouble here.
It was very Irish of you.
Yeah, we need to make some really tough decisions here, because that tasted horrible. There's another approach which I think is quite tempting, which is, that looks terrible. How do we make sure no one sees that, and we come up with some sort of new narrative that we're going to tell people to believe in? And that new narrative, you can polish it and shine it and refresh it and update it, but reality bats last in life. So you're going to have to drink that at some stage, and it may well be on your deathbed when you've no resources left to fight. And I think that's just the way, that's startups,
Yeah, that's show business for you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about why you're spending so much time in R&D right now. I mean, I can make my own hypotheses. You have your PhD background. Mm-hmm. It's a very exciting time. Why are you picking that lane to spend most of your time right now?
Well, the first thing I'd say is, like, R&D is like literally how we describe all PDE, like product design and engineering. So so all of that rolls up to me. But there is a lot more of the research than there ever has been before. So we've been producing our own models for customer service. So our AI team have released these suite of CX models, which are like post-trained LLM models specifically optimized for customer service. And we've been building out like a lot of different experimental features in the areas of voice, in the areas of Fin completing full task procedures, data visualization to summarize how a company's customers are speaking about all of the issues that are going on. So like we've been doing, like the era of AI necessitates that you do a lot more experimentation than you ever did in your life before. So our AI group is busy just chomping on experiments and testing and looking for improvements. And a lot of what I sit in every week is like these work stream meetings where we just present the latest findings in every single area.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's like it's a very rich space to go digging. And you're like, it's kind of like every time we like look in, we're like, well, there's gold over here and there's gold over there. It looks like you've got slightly more gold, but it looks like you've got a more direct path to some. And your roadmap is like this portfolio of bets, but just at this sort of embryonic stage where AI is still at, there's a kind of gold ever, and like it's really hard to like prioritize because everything is lucrative, right? We could go really hard on voice, we could go really hard on data viz, we could just really go hard on core, retrieval augmented generation, really hard on models. Every single one of those bets will work for us.
So how do you prioritize? Like, what is the answer?
It's a really difficult, honestly. Like we're spreading our bets across a few different areas. Like the main, like the anatomy of a great sort of CS AI agent is like world class RAG. We think we've got one of the best in the world. A lot of that is down to the custom models as well. Then you've got all world-class omnichannel. So Fin over email is a different beast to Fin over live chat is a different beast to Fin over voice.
Yeah.
They have different latency concerns. People don't mind if an email takes 10 minutes. People want a voice to be extremely snappy. And then you might get like, 5-10 seconds for like messaging, like live chat messaging. So you've like, there are different approaches to solve different UXs, all different considerations. Some people want a Fin that's like easy to use out of the box. Some people are okay with something that takes like a lot of training and like MCP integration so it can issue a full refund and all that sort of stuff. So you're kind of like all of these areas are hugely important, and we're basically like trying to find the most important project within each of those. But there's no way to do AICS without doing all of them. You need a brilliant sort of CS agent which can like do all the like actual tasks and answer all the questions. You need brilliant knowledge base importing and all that sort of stuff, like learn how does Fin learn what's going right and wrong. You need great data viz, you need to work in all the different channels, and you need to be optimized for all the different sort of expectations of those channels. Every single one of those translates into like teams and roadmaps inside Fin, and it's the way. So it's not, when we prioritize, it's really just like who gets the most headcount at any given time. But like AI people are hard to come by. We only have maybe 50 of them, maybe 60. So you have to spread to some degree. But yeah, I think one of the mistakes people make is they just put all their people just constantly working on new features. And actually one of the reasons Fin outperforms so much is because we have consistently scratched at certain core muscles, like just actually answering questions really well.
What percentage of the 50 to 60 would you say is focused on new versus core that's already in existence?
I'd say it might be like 50-50.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And what's so exciting too is because this team is so thoughtful and smart in building tooling for your customers, you can also apply a lot of that internally.
Oh yeah.
And that's the one thing that like I think we don't talk enough about is a lot of these like businesses, they're not only doing cool stuff, software wise, but you can really optimize a team and you can really optimize like your own prioritization and getting, answers back from data very quickly and all that good stuff.
Definitely. Yeah.
Quo, formerly OpenPhone, is built to help small business owners and growing teams stay on top of every customer conversation. Instead of juggling calls, texts, and voicemails on a personal phone, Quo gives you a dedicated business line and an all-in-one inbox that works on any device. Teams can collaborate in real time, picking up conversations seamlessly and responding faster than ever. And with Quo's AI agent, Sona, handling after-hour calls, answering questions, and even booking appointments, you'll never miss a lead. Rated 4.7 stars on G2 and trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, Quo, formerly OpenPhone, is the smarter way to grow without missing a customer. Quo is offering my listeners 20% off of your first 3 months at quo.com/trailblazers. That's quo.com/trailblazers. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. I've actually used Gusto at 3 different companies, and every time it's been such a relief. It's simple, it's reliable, my paycheck was always on time, no drama. And unlike the big clunky payroll systems out there, Gusto is affordable and designed for teams like ours. Gusto is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all-in-one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/trailblazers and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/trailblazers. One more time, gusto.com/TRAILBLAZERS. Amazing. I could keep peppering you with questions, but we're going to go to our lightning round. Cool?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So give me the first answer that comes to mind.
Okay.
If you want to expand on it, go for it. But I want to hear the first answer.
Sure.
Okay. Book in hand or podcast in ears?
Book in hand would be my preference. More often it's podcast in ears.
Okay. Any favorite books lately?
No.
Okay. I love the honesty. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Night owl. Cooking dinner or ordering in?
Cooking dinner. Yeah, I like cooking. I really do. I don't get to do it as much as I would like because of just work and all that. But like, I actually really like cooking.
And what's your favorite thing to make?
Like, boringly, it's probably a steak or a stir fry. They're the two things I cook most of. But like, I like the challenge of cooking something I've never made before as well. And like, just, now it is a total like everyone out of the kitchen. Like leave me alone. This could go bad, and I'm going to be in bad humor for the whole time. But no, I'm trying to think, what was the last interesting thing? I mean, like beef Wellington is probably a good, like, I like to challenge myself on things like that, where it's like, all right, this is going to be like 6 hours of an investment. Let's see where we get.
And remind me, it's like the meat in the middle with like the filo dough around it. Is that right?
Yes, and then there's a layer of what's called duxelle, which is like a sort of pureed mushrooms and some other ingredients that sits in between them. And then there's all sorts of techniques. The filo dough, you need to get the like sort of cross cut and get all the fancy shapes in it. And then you need to make sure it's just slightly crispy, but at the same time that's tricky because the duxelle leaks into it, and that
so does it get soggy?
That's if it goes wrong if you do that way. And then also there's all sorts of other stuff you can get right and wrong. Like, you only really get one shot at salting the meat. And you don't know if it's right or not. So like, there's a challenge. Once it's wrapped, it's gone, right? So if you might end up with any good steak type thing, it needs a lot of like sort of seasoning. But like, I've made it wrong where I've like over seasoned the life out of it, and it's been like way too salty, and I've made it the exact opposite. So it's a real hard balance.
Sounds like too many things to coordinate.
It is. It's a hard, like, if you came over for a dinner party, I wouldn't risk it because it would probably like
go south.
Yes, exactly. And there's no recovery. It's not like, like if you make a chili, you can be like, all right, I can cool it down, I'll add some yogurt, or I can heat it up, or you're better off just throwing it in the bin, and all right, now we're going to order in.
It's also like the main central item of the meal. Like, a chili can be your side.
Yes, exactly.
But this is like the center, beautiful. Yeah. Okay.
It's a swagger statement. If you make it and make a mistake with it, it's like it's a bad move. Yeah.
So it's bold to even try, though. I'm very impressed. VC or bootstrapping?
Oh, like VC, I will say I have a lot of love and affinity for the bootstrapping community. When we started, like, 37 Signals were our heroes, and they still are in most ways. It's like it's Jason and David's internet, and we all just get to play in it. But there's I don't want to, like, we raised VC and it worked out for us. And if I started another startup, I'd raise VC again. And I think I'm a fan of investors in general, and also be hypocritical. I also invest in companies. So
you're like, I hate it, but I do it.
Yeah, exactly. Some of my best friends are investors. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you on the bootstrapping community and 37 Signals, iconic. Networking dinner or big conference?
What am I doing at the big conference?
Whatever you want. You could be speaking, or you could be just meeting people.
I'd rather speak at a big conference. I find dinners can take a lot of energy out of me, and if the goal was, like, say, grow awareness or something, I'm better on stage than I am at a dinner.
Do you have a favorite conference you like to speak at or go to?
Slush in Europe is great. I really like it.
Classic, yeah.
Although for whatever reason, I haven't been invited back. But there's a few others, but Web Summit's good. And I'm trying to think, where was I? I was just recently at, like...
You're doing the very European conferences, like Slush, Web Summit.
When I lived here, I did a lot. Like, I was, TechCrunch, Disrupt, and like Launch, and all those sort of California ones. Yeah, the classics. Yeah. I think it's just, I guess when you say no too many times, you just stop getting invited. Like people to a dinner party, and like, it's ultimately the ask for me is like, will you please fly to California and speak for 17 minutes on a panel? And you're like, no, I won't. Sorry. Yeah.
It's got to be a lot more going for me to do that. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, we didn't get into it too much, but you're living in Dublin now. Mm-hmm. So it's quite the trek to go from the Bay to Dublin and back.
Yeah, I do it for occasions, and I'm here for you.
Yes, you're here for me. Thank you. Yeah. Luckily, we're not too far for you. Amazing. Hire slow or fire fast?
Fire fast. I think it's the most fair thing for everybody. I honestly... if I had a little rant on this, it would just be like, I think ruinous empathy can really damage people's careers, and I think keeping somebody in a position that they're not performing in, under the guise of empathy, is one of the worst things you can do for them. You're basically setting them up like you're not going to promote them. You're going to let them waste their time, and you're going to rob them of the feedback that they needed to get to actually adapt their own career. You're hurting your own company. You're hurting your own sort of feedback mechanism, and you're doing it all. The thing that kills me is you're doing it all because you have a belief that you want to be liked, and you're putting your ego ahead of that person's career progression. And if you're honest and you realize that that's what you're doing, you're like, oh my God, maybe I'm the asshole here. Like the right thing to do is say, this ain't working out. Here's why. Here's the stuff and then usually if that's a PIP or if that's a termination, or so be it. Depends on the country. But it's a very negative pattern, I think, for people to like to prioritize their own ego and how they feel they're perceived by people over the career of somebody. When somebody goes to work for you, they're putting a chunk of their career, a portion, a timeline of their career in your hands under your guidance. And they're saying, like, I trust that you, Erica, will look after this stage of my career where I was hoping to go from director to VP or manager to director. And we agreed that when I signed the contract to work here, and that's what I'm hoping you can do. And I think once you detect that that's not happening, it's an obligation on you to give the corrective feedback and ultimately to terminate the relationship so that they can go and find another one. I think you not doing that is you abdicating your own responsibility as that person's like leader or manager or whatever. And it's something that always upsets me when I see it, because I've had friends who've gotten fired and it's been the best thing for them. I've had friends who've gotten fired and it hasn't worked out great, but like it also wasn't going to work out great in that job. But I think the worst people I've seen, like whose career really plateaued or hit a wall or whatever, has been they were just working for a manager who could just never get it together to say, this isn't the company for you. And like you can lose 2, 3, 4 years, but they're important years, you know. They could be like 26 through 30, like the years where you can really give a company your all, but they weren't getting the feedback. So so fire fast.
I love it. That's really good advice for managers, but also for employees that may be listening to this and in their gut maybe know that it's probably not working out, but they too are trying to just stick it out for whatever reason. I appreciate that. 10 small wins or 1 moonshot?
I am hardwired for the 10 small wins. So I'd love to give you some monologue about moonshots, but I know if you look at me, I'll take the 10 small wins 8 days a week. I just believe in momentum, and I just believe in like rapid re-encouragement and feedback and iteration loops and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Where does that come from?
It's hard to put a pin in it, but like I think founders kind of grow up together and they grow in different directions, like in the same way trees don't grow in each other's shadows. Like I grew in a direction that made me like think, right, the product org needs the R&D or product engineering, we need to move fast and we need to like get lots of stuff done. And that led me to like, all right, let's find things that are really good to do and do them, and that's kind of the, like, I think had roles swapped early on in Intercom, maybe I would have been a bit more like, no, this is a moonshots thing. We're here to make like these wild, ambitious swings. But I'm kind of like, it's just, I think momentum is something I'm very sensitive to. I don't like it when things feel like they're slowing down or anything like that. I'm always just like, no, we need to keep going. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And the thing that scares me with moonshots is often there tends to be an element of like, well, the team have gone off into the forest and they've had like big workshop, and I'm like, well, where's the outcome? And I'm too hungry for like, show me the thing you're doing and show me how it's going to work. That's my blind spot in some sense, but I also think there's value to the momentum that I would push for as well.
Totally. Well, I also think like with a founding team, you want to have a bit of all of it.
Yeah, totally.
And so you can just own that, like that's your lane, and your other co-founders, they might be a little bit more moonshotty. Love that. Being early or being right?
Yeah, I would rather be right, but I think most people are more likely to be early. I think in general in technology, tech is the story of every idea that was ever like laughed at turning out to be correct just like a decade later, like whether it's like pets.com or Bitcoin or whatever, right? And I think like a lot of the time when someone says, oh, I think such and such is going to happen, like, I think there'll be a lot of convergence in the Apple era, or I think OpenAI will turn into like an applications company or whatever. You might be wrong and be laughed at for like 2 or 3 or 4 years, but at some point you will be right. It's very hard to profit off being early, and more often than not you just end up taking a lot of like heat.
And a lot of laughter in your face.
Yeah, and it's just, and like there are sometimes like something like say Bitcoin, you actually can just buy and hold, and if you really have conviction and you're impenetrable, that'll pay off really, really well. Whereas like having the idea that like scooters were going to be big in the year of Segway, there was no real action to be had there, you know. So like, you're just going to have to just take your lumpies, you know. Like people are going to criticize you, and it turns out the Segway was the right idea. We just needed a better form factor, you know.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like good on a shirt, you know. Like people are going to laugh at you, but you are going to be right in 10 years. Yeah, you're right. Bitcoin also is one of the few that have stayed consistent. Like if you made a bet on, you know, pets.com way back when, and another pet startup, it's a different company, so you don't reap the benefits.
Exactly that. Like they're very, you can see that your idea came to fruition, but if it came in the form of a different company, you're screwed.
Yeah, you get no equity.
Yeah, exactly.
Never post on social media again, or never fundraise another dollar again. And this is just for you personally, not necessarily the company.
Okay.
So you could like start another company raise or post on your social media.
Yeah. I would probably, I think social media is really dying at the moment from a tech point of view, like reputation, like as in, this isn't an anti-Elon thing or even anti-slop or anything like that, but it used to be the case that tech news happened on Twitter and was discussed on Twitter, and you found out about cool products on Twitter. And now, I don't know if it's just my feed, but now I just feel like it's just wall-to-wall shock and drama and like autoplay videos of like gross things happening and all sorts of stuff. And like it's just not like, so if you told me like, hey, you're gonna have to run a startup, but like Twitter can't be your like outlet, I'd be like, oh, okay. Like I don't think anyone cares. Like I think Twitter right now is basically, on my Twitter again, and this is where you accidentally reveal all your preferences, but like my Twitter is mostly awash with the new Taylor Swift dance, you know. That's what I'm getting, you know, like it's that, where it's like, you know, Sabrina Carpenter was in one of the songs. And then there's like U.S. politics that dominates a chunk of it. There's some nonsense going on in Irish politics. But like somewhere in the middle of all this, I'm like, has anyone done anything good in AI lately?
Totally.
And like you might get some thread somewhere about like OpenAI's releases this week, but it's one of those threads, you know, where it's like, here's what you need to know, or like, yeah, OpenAI just destroyed $9 billion of startups. Here's how, and you're just like, oh, this is garbage. So I don't know. It feels like I really do believe there's an opportunity for a new, tech-focused social network where all the like people who are serious about tech can hang out and talk about tech, effectively like Hacker News, but like in a stream or something like that.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Let me know if you find it.
Yeah.
Quick aside, do you like Taylor Swift's new album? I've
only listened a bit to it, so like I am a Swiftie in most ways. There's a couple like is it Ophalite? Is the song?
Yeah, Ophalite.
Yeah, Ophalite. Yeah. That's a tune. Like I like that, and I've listened to the album once. But you know when you're listening to a podcast, on the AirPods when you're walking around the city, that's where I've been doing here in New York. The songs are all kind of blurring into one. I need to have an actual,
like focus.
Yeah, I need to have a sit
Read
down.
it.
Exactly. I also, for whatever reason, I respond better to albums when there's like a lot of videos, because it helps me like visually remember each of the songs in isolation. Whereas I find myself singing some of these songs and then drifting into other ones and stuff, so I haven't got into it. I suspect it's a better album than the reputation is actually that it's getting right now, and everyone's like, oh, this is a bit crap, and this whole thing of like, because she's in love, she can't write like good songs.
Crazy.
I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think this will probably be a pretty successful album, basically, and I'm pretty confident. But yeah, I was surprised that she said she's not going to tour it, which will be interesting.
Yeah, I think she's tired.
Yeah,
I think she's just like, that was the craziest thing she ever did.
Yeah.
My advice, listen to Ruin the Friendship.
Okay.
Look at the lyrics. Mm-hmm. It's the best of the whole album.
All right. Okay, good.
I have homework for you. Okay, last question. AI hype or AI fatigue?
AI hype, as in like, are you saying which do I believe? Or
yeah,
which?
Do you think?
Yeah. I'm still 100% AI pilled. Like, yeah, we're still just getting started.
Team AI.
Team AI all the way, but like honestly, I think the other thing about the fatigue is the drift's negative. There's a thing that wrecks my head about like general tech commentary at the moment, which is somebody needs to like take the angle of what if it all goes right. Like,
totally.
What if AI does massively improve medicine? What if it streamlines law? What if it helps education? What if all of a sudden the next generation of kids are insanely smart because they're getting all this like 3D avatar powered AI 1-to-1, like extremely smart tuition. Like there's so much good stuff that's yet to happen, that's on the way. And I just think, like, for all of the like, ooh, this thing happened with AI, or what about that thing, or like here's a way in which a tweet can go wrong or whatever. I'm like, yeah, grand. what if it all goes right though? Like, look at we're at the precipice of here. Like, how can this not be like wildly exciting?
Or even in a few sectors. I mean, that's
totally.
so much of it too. It doesn't have to be everywhere, but like it could really change, like you said, education, law,
Absolutely.
science. Yeah.
And then you look at the sort of the improvements in robotics that are going on at the moment, and you think about that fusing with the AI improvements, and you start to realize like we're at the cusp of something civilization level impact that's going to be like huge. And I just, so when people say they're tired with AI, I'm like, sorry mate, maybe you should just quit. You know, like it's like this is the time. You know, if you can't get excited and get out of bed and run to work at a moment like this in technology, you were probably never supposed to work in technology.
Totally. Well, also, I think you're so deep in it now that you see all the applications and all the use cases. There's definitely, unfortunately, it's the media and it's Twitter pushing this narrative of your job's going to get lost. It's all not going to go right. So, but you know, to hear it from you that you're excited still and you're seeing so much of it, it's a great sign for people.
For sure.
Amazing. How can people support you? So if people are excited to learn more about Finn or Intercom or you, let me know where they can find you.
So if you do customer service, fin.ai is where you can go. And then I'm just Des Traynor literally everywhere. I'm des@fin.ai is my email address, but like Des Traynor on all the socials, LinkedIn and Twitter are probably where I'm most active, and come find me there. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. Thanks so much for being here, Des. This was awesome.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you. On Trailblazers, we're always talking about multiplying your impact, and that's exactly what Athena helps you do. Athena pairs you with a world-class executive assistant who becomes a true force multiplier for your business and your life. Working with my Athena assistant has been transformative. Gab was instrumental in raising Park Rangers Capital's fund in ways that I could have never imagined an assistant could contribute. From closing six-figure checks to identifying new LPs we should meet to matching my tone perfectly in follow-up emails. He's elevated my capacity as a founder by giving me more time to focus on the highest leverage work. Athena isn't just about scheduling meetings, it's about unlocking leverage. Hundreds of founders, investors, and executives trust Athena to free their time and scale their impact. Athena is offering our listeners $2,000 off for their first year of service and priority onboarding. And you want that, trust me, there's a very long wait list. When you're ready to multiply your impact and free up time for the things only you can do, go to athenago.me/Erica-Wenger. That's athenago.me/ERICA-WENGER. Thanks so much for listening to the Trailblazers podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. You can also support our work by sharing it with a friend or leaving a quick review. It helps more contrarian builders find us. For more on Park Rangers Capital and our community of elephant founders, head to parkrangerscap.com or find me online at Erica_Wenger. Until next time, keep trailblazing.